Hey, I'm out here today at Riverland's Paseo Park wearing a shirt my wife hates, but my dog loves. But my dog loves anything that gives him food, so maybe that's why he loves this shirt. Now, Florida's population has grown. People continue to come here, but how do you know if this state's right for you? Which area is right for you? That's what I want to touch base on today, so hang out. Hi, I'm Steve Kimos, a realtor specializing in new construction here in gorgeous Port St. Lucie, Florida. Well, I did what you might be thinking about doing, and that's moving to Florida. When I retired, that's where I wanted to be, and more specifically, the Treasure Coast. The question is, why did we move here? Well, I can tell you it wasn't an impulsive move. I tend to be an over-planner, an over-researcher, and after 31 years as a teacher, counselor, school and board administrator, it was time to change some things up a bit. So here are the reasons and some of the ideas that made us choose the Treasure Coast, and more specifically Tradition and Port St. Lucie. Well, first, no state income taxes. I receive over $5,000 more in my pension per year just by moving to Florida. Now keep in mind, I pay about $300 more a year in car insurance, about $500 more a year in homeowners insurance, and about $1,500 more in property taxes than I paid when I was up north in Maryland. But think about this, I'm still up over $3,000 by not paying any state income tax. So in the end, it makes more sense to not pay the income tax and have a little bit higher fees. Now, of course, this all depends on where you're coming from in the country or in the state. A lot of other places, especially near the larger metropolitan areas out west or up north or down south here in Florida, it's much more expensive. So coming to the Treasure Coast seems like an absolute bargain, but it can be all relative. Now, related to property taxes and home prices in Port St. Lucie, there are more affordable homes and less expensive houses here. So I'm licensed all up and down the Treasure Coast, and when working with a couple, they had to have a West Palm Beach or Jupiter or Palm Beach Gardens address. Now that's cool. Whatever the area they wanted is fine with me, I'll support them. But they kept referencing that they wanted those areas because of lower property taxes. But that reason alone makes zero sense. They ended up looking at a house that was identical to the houses in Tradition, but cost $80,000 to $120,000 more. So in the end, they would actually pay the same property taxes because they were paying more for the same house. And even if they were paying $2,000 to $3,000 more a year in property taxes, it would take decades to make up that $80,000 to $120,000 more for the same comparable house. They could have gotten so much more house for the money, but of course I respect their decision and where they want it to be. But that's something to think about when it comes to the higher property taxes or the lower priced house. Depending on what that house costs, usually the lower priced house wins. Now, speaking of location, I'm out here on location at Riverland's Paseo Greenway. Just gorgeous if you get a chance to come visit here. So location, and that's what leads me to when researching where to live in Florida, we wanted tropical, subtropical environment without going into much more crowded areas down south. We wanted to be near the beach, but not too close to the coast so we could save on homeowners insurance. We pay about $1,700 a year for good coverage. And it also lessens the impact of storms that we're a little further west and we're not in a flood zone. We didn't want to be too far north where it gets colder in the winter and it gets a bit more crowded again. So the Treasure Coast on Port St. Lucie's Atlantic side was the Goldilocks choice for us. Under 2 hours from Orlando and just over 2 hours from Miami, we could easily do a day trip in either direction. Plus, in between Port St. Lucie and Miami are towns and cities like Stuart, Jupiter, West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, Boca Raton. And to the north, we had Vero Beach, Melbourne, Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral. And it had easy access to so many places north and south that it would take years for us to explore all the places up and down the coast. Now, the weather played a big factor in where we wanted to move, but 6 or 7 months out of the year, the temperatures here, the highs are in the 80s and the lows are in the 70s, and at night it gets to the mid to low 60s. 3 months a year though, it gets hot with humidity in the 80% range. But even during the bad time of year, there's still 4 hours in the morning from 6 to 10:30 and a couple hours around sunset where the weather is fantastic, even in the hottest times of year. During the winter up north, there's no part of the day where you can get outside and enjoy the weather. When it's 38 degrees in the afternoon, it's 30 degrees in the morning and the evening. No time. The weather here is just fantastic. Let's talk about the overall crime rate and crime. You can go to Google and Google crime rate in Port St. Lucie, and if you do, you'll find a very low crime rate. In fact, some of the lowest in the country. But despite that, you still find trolls that say, oh, PSL, Port St. Lucie's terrible. It's becoming just like down south, all this crime. Just look at the stats. Now, as the population grows, the overall crime rate will grow. But I imagine the per capita crime rate won't grow too much, as Port St. Lucie is planning to maintain low crime rate by hiring more officers and open up a precinct right here in Tradition. It also has a fire station going up right here on Village Parkway. So let's talk about things to do. Now, if you're retiring here and moving into an over 55 community, you have a ton of things to do right within your own neighborhood. There's things like pottery classes, cooking classes, art classes, gardening, dancing, concerts, restaurants and cafes, workout facilities, volleyball, bocce ball, shuffleboard, tennis, pickleball, cycling, aerobics. There are all kinds of clubs, like, there's poker club, mahjong, canasta, dance club, movie and book clubs, and more. And all this right in your neighborhood that you don't even have to leave if you pick an over 55 community. Now, a lot of these things can be found in all ages communities, like in Seville, but mostly you'll find the amenities in a smaller scale in the all ages communities. Now, outside of the neighborhoods and communities, the Port St. Lucie area has a bit to offer, like hanging out or surfing on the beaches in Hutchinson Island. You can check out my video on the beaches of Hutchinson Island, which is linked below. You can also go to the botanical gardens. There's restaurants, shopping, a farmer's market, multiple parks. There's also paddleboarding, kayaking, and fishing and boating on the St. Lucie River. All of these things you can do all year round. Now, I've mentioned this before in other videos, but unfortunately, Port St. Lucie doesn't have a traditional old Florida downtown. For that, you have to drive 25 to 30 minutes to Jensen Beach or downtown Fort Pierce or Stuart. Again, just check out my videos on those towns, linked below. So by the way, the Port St. Lucie government says they're developing a city center patterned on West Palm Beach on Route 1 of the event grounds there. However, that's years away from completion. And finally, let me say something about the airports. I was used to Baltimore-Washington International Airport or Dulles or Philadelphia International Airport. And I can say Palm Beach International, which is about 40-45 minutes from Port St. Lucie, is fantastic. It's small enough and easy enough to get in and out in, but still big enough to handle the needs of the area. Now, while everyone has an airport horror story, I haven't had one at PBI yet. Well, there are some reasons and some things to consider if you're thinking about moving to Florida and possibly choosing the Treasure Coast. Check out my videos on the area. I got a ton of them. And be sure to contact me. My information is on the screen and in the description below. And maybe you want to come to the area and check it out. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.